Hello and welcome to the Nooks and Crannies tour at First Congregational Church in Akron, Ohio. My name is Todd and I will be the tour guide for today. Let's get right into this. This is the Fellowship Hall of the 1910 building. And what we're going to be noticing is this south end behind the two pillars. This is the beginning of a light shaft. And the light shaft was designed to give more light to this area, which early on didn't have much light because it was sectioned off from the other part of the room. Right here you can see now in this plan the windows that were in the ceiling of the section you just saw. These glass windows would look clear to the roof and see the sky above. Right above is a stage for the Sunday school / upper room, and as you can see here, it used to raise up. We'll see that in a second. Here's a map. This is the fellowship hall, the upper room with the stage that goes up, and the 2 or 3-story light shaft that is going all the way to the skylights that you see here on the roof. The skylights were 12 feet long by 24 feet long. So that's quite a feat for 1910 or so. Now, this light shaft would only work when the stage was raised. And in a little bit here, we'll see another representation of that. Here we can see the bottom of the plan with the fellowship hall. Moving over to the left side, you can see the stage that had pulleys and would raise up. And look at the very large, it was about 12 by 24 feet. This plastered and laughed light shaft that would go clear to the roof, which is quite an amazing feat for that time. And then we're coming back down to the fellowship hall, as you can see. And then going up into the upper room, that's the 2 floors you see here, which is the previous Sunday school. There is a large stained glass window and a light shaft above that as well. And you can see this going up now. And then this was another set of skylights and a ventilator. The ventilator had a glass roof on it as well. So plenty of light would be coming into these 2 areas, which is very necessary, especially in 1910 when the bulbs weren't that good. We're moving out of the fellowship hall now and moving into the west vestibule. It's been enlarged now by the 1958 building. We're going to go through and into what is now called the Mayflower Room. The Mayflower Room was originally the deacon's room, and they performed all of their duties there. What we have here is the control for the bell tower and the clock tower. This is a safe made in Cleveland, Ohio, and it used to hold the silver and then the money, I suppose, that was kept there before taking it to the bank. And it's fascinating to see some of the safes and other things like that in some of these old churches. This is the current blower room for the organ. As you can see, the blower motor is there. The air return was above. You caught a glimpse of that. And now we are heading under the stage. Uh, and that's coming up right now. The stage has been modified many times over the years. Let me pause. Those two square white devices are the hearing loops for hearing aids to be able to connect to the sound system. The stage has been modified several times over the last 113 years. It's been raised and lowered and had different sections to it. This is the hallway from the Mayflower room into the meeting house, and we'll see that in just a second. These doors are actually all original with original hardware, and we're going to rotate around and just get a brief view of the meeting house. Now we are heading through the 1958 building. The 1910 building is to our left. If the drywall was removed, you would see the stone of the original 1910 building. We're going to turn right just to stop at this one room that most people don't see. It's currently used as a break room, but in 1958, this was the pastor's office, and that leads into the rest of the offices. We've come around the corner to see the blower room, something you don't see, but this does have some interesting things in it. And especially what we see is this device here. This is the blower for the second pipe organ that is in the chapel. The church does have two pipe organs. And we can talk a little bit about that a little bit later. The parish house was the second building of the complex, and it was built in 1918 for entertainment: basketball, volleyball, shuffleboard, ping pong, badminton, and even a bowling alley was in the basement. It was a beautiful building, craftsman style of architecture with some Tudor hints of Tudor revival as well. We're walking into the actual vestibule of that building now, and we can see we've walked through the double doors, which used to be the entrance doors. This was all changed in 1958. Now we've walked through the vestibule here. What you see now is the foyer. This is currently the library, but it used to be the ladies' lounge. These bookcases were not here originally, and there were windows out to the front. This little nook was actually a staircase that went down to a restroom in the basement. Instead of these bookcases, there was a pass through that led to a restroom and a coat room. This was the men's lounge, now the pastor's office. Again, the left had windows. The fireplace is all original, as is the beautiful tile. Here's Pastor Nanette hard at work and waving to us. This is the original foyer plan. That is the current library, double doors, and there was a beautiful staircase heading up to the second floor. And the next picture gives us a different view. That's a front-on elevation. Those two doors would take us into the gymnasium. The gymnasium is now the food pantry. The ceiling has been lowered about 6 feet, and a wall, which you can see on the right, has been added to divide the rooms. These rooms were used in the late 50s and on as classrooms for kids. This wall goes directly into the pastor's office, and when it was the men's lounge, that would be a coat room that you see there, and then its own restroom. Coming into the pantry, the food pantry is a wonderful blessing for those who need a little bit of help at times. The pantry hours are twice a week, and with a peanut butter and jelly program on Fridays, which is also weekly, and this is for children in a local school who needs a little bit of help. This particular room is more storage. It's filled with a walk-in freezer and a series of commercial refrigerators. This side of the food pantry is where the clients walk through, and with the assistance of the volunteers, are able to choose different food types and other items, including fresh dairy products and produce, which is a wonderful help for those who need it. Back when it was a gymnasium, we can see pictures here from 1949, people playing volleyball. This is from the 1920s. Kids playing different sports happened all the time. Notice the beautiful oak balcony above the doorway. We just saw that doorway a minute ago. There were balconies on both sides that went upstairs, and we will see those rooms in a minute. Here's a plan of it. The main doors, the left and right doors with the balconies above that. And then here's a closer version of that. Beautiful carved oak. Wish we could have seen that. Now we've come down to the basement of the parish house. This section right now was actually the men's restrooms, the boys' restrooms, and the girls' restrooms. This closet was actually men's showers. The walls are a little bit bigger. This area went into the bowling alley. The kitchen was not here. And as you can see all the way down, this area did have a wall on the right, and it was a 1 or 2 lane bowling alley with the pins set up behind where the camera is now. This whole area was used for various games and fun and entertainment. Um, and then this is the main hallway where you see the phone on the left was the stairway coming down. And again, this is currently a blower utility type room. This was a men's changing room. And again, this area had a couple showers in it. The room was a little bit bigger than that at the time. And this room is now the gardening office, but the left side was the boiler room. And the right side was the coal room, where the picture is on the wall with the sunflowers. That's approximately where the coal chute was from the outside. It did actually have air vents coming in to bring fresh air in from the outside and through steam radiators. You can see people playing shuffleboard here. This picture is from 1949. And they also had bowling set up as well that could be played. Again, other sports, ping pong here and such. Now we head up to the second floor of the same building. This is the 1958 edition, looking at this wall, which is actually the outside of the parish house. So we're in the new section now, and we're heading into the pipe room. Now, this is the pipe room for the chapel pipe organ. It's a small 2 manual organ made by the Chance Organ Company in 1960. It works fine. It's not actually used all that often, but it does have a nice sound to it, and it's kept in good working order. Now we're walking into the foyer. This is above the foyer that you just saw a little bit ago. We're on the second floor now. Ironically, when this building was built, it was actually a closet. We're walking into the boys and girls lounge. That's what it was originally used for. Today it's Sunday school classrooms, and it's above the men's lounge, which is now the pastor's office. Those bookcases was the area that would look directly onto the balcony. Heading into the room over the women's lounge, now the library, this was a billiards room, and again, this west wall had a doorway that stepped down onto the balcony. Now, this room is actually the closet, and the current closet that we are going into was actually the foyer for the second floor. To the right there, where you see the shelves, that had a staircase coming up, and then a little vestibule area with doorways to on either side. This is the kids using the Boys and Girls Lounge for a little radio drama. Now we're going to head up the ladder to see the fun parts. I enjoy basements and attics. The attic is quite a time capsule. That piece on the right was a previous ladder that was used to get up here before the drop ceiling was put in. As we go around, you can see the clay tile. This was the front of the building facing east. All of the rafters, all of the wood actually is old growth oak, very strong. As we pan towards that, you can see the area here. This is the area in the west side that's above the gymnasium. Again, this ceiling is plaster and lath, and then there's about 6 feet of nothing, and then the current ceiling, which was done in about 1958 with the entire renovation. Now we've moved to the upper room. This was previously the Sunday school. This is a modified Akron plan. In about 1860, Robert Lewis, who was an industrialist and lived in Akron, was responsible for helping to construct and plan the first Akron plan. And then the modified version kept the Sunday school separate. You can see the beautiful stained glass, and it's well lit because of the light tube. We'll discuss the lighting in here in just a little bit. It's fascinating, and it's a beautiful space. Now we're upstairs just to see the top of the stained glass, and once again the diagram of the light shaft that is heading all the way up to that ventilator, which provided ventilation, and of course the skylight that is there. Notice these types of fixtures with the coiled wire. They were used extensively in the upper room area. Here's the plan. I don't know if you can see it, but around these stained glass were a total of 24 of those individual light bulbs, and around the outside were 40 light bulbs. Here's the plan that's on the floor below the balcony. There are 9 lights, but each of them had 3 light bulbs that were electric and 3 gas lamps, just in case the electric went out. You can see the orange dots were actually bare light bulbs, like you saw in the previous diagram with the wires connecting them, and the blue lights were fixtures that actually, just like you can see here, these have 2 lights and 2 gas jets. The lights either had 2 lights and 2 jets or 3. This is a diagram of how the stage lifted up with a crank up in the attic. Quite fascinating. Here we're going up to the stage. That is the exact stage that lifted up. It's the same one. We are looking at a slot here because when this stage lifted up to provide lighting to the room downstairs, the fellowship hall that we already saw, a large wall was lowered to protect this area from people falling into it. It was a beautiful wall. We'll see a diagram in a second. See this large pulley? This was the exact pulley that did that. This wall is huge. It's over 21 feet wide and it's 17 and a half feet tall. The arched areas are glass, and then the rectangular dashed areas are recessed panels, solid oak, and it must have been beautiful. It had counterbalances, and you can see in the front of the picture here a crank. This is how it was raised and lowered. Now we're going to head up towards the attic. About that door again, the tracks go just about all the way to the roof. They had 7-foot long counterbalances for weight, and it was raised and lowered as needed. Now heading up to the attic, another favorite place. This is the attic above the old Sunday school, now called the upper room. Looking up, this is the firewall that separates the north side of the building from the south. The north is the Sunday School Fellowship Hall area, and the south is the meeting house. It was originally called the auditorium, and that was changed to the meeting house. All of this wood is old growth, very, very dense oak. It's 2 or 3 times heavier than a piece of wood today. See that plastered area? You'd never see that in a regular house or building, but that is the light shaft that goes all the way down to the fellowship hall. Notice the construction, quite fascinating. Uh, excuse me. The steel girders were installed first, and then the ceilings were suspended and hung from it. And then this happens to be a flat ceiling, so it was incorporated into the steel girders that are just below the insulation, the steel girders and the joists. The roof is on top of that. Now, that opening is through the firewall, goes into the attic above the meeting house, which we will see a little bit later. Notice this little bridge that goes over the HVAC system that was put there for safety. And on the right, you can see the plastered area. The camera caught it for just a second. The plastered area is the light shaft above the stained glass window. We're going to duck under this steel girder and take a look in there. So now the air vents are used for air conditioning, but they used to be convection currents. The stained glass window is beautiful. Once again, it used to have light bulbs all around it, a total of 16 light bulbs around it, and an 8 light bulb chandelier in the center. You can see here the brand new skylights, nearly brand new. They were installed in 2006. They had been covered up since, I believe, 1951. Notice the beautiful cranking mechanism plan, and here it is. It still functions. Not, it actually turns, but there is no longer a stage to lift. It's beautifully designed and constructed. And here's a review of this. That's the fellowship hall. We just headed up through the opening stage area, going all the way up this light shaft, some 40 or 50 feet to the stained glass windows, and then a review picture including both light shafts in the north side of the building. Quite fascinating, really. Now we're heading up to the attic above the meeting house, and that's a little trickier to navigate. If you've been in the meeting house, the ceiling is a different shape than most. It goes up and down. It's quite beautiful, but it is very difficult and very dangerous to wander around up here for maintenance purposes. This is a couple oak boards that that's how we get up to the top. Once again, you can see the steel girders. The firewall is now on your left because we are on the south side of the building. The ramp here is again a couple 1x10s, and the blown insulation hides everything else, so you really have to watch your step. New electric has been installed. That was done in 2006. That is about the third electrical system, at least that's what it looks like to me. All of the lights used to be knob and tube, and then they were placed in conduit, the electrical wires placed in conduit, and then a now newer conduit. That is one of the large can lights. It looks like a headlight. They're 500-watt incandescent lights that light up different areas. Notice this tiny little walkway that goes over to a crank. Now these cranks are original 1910. You'll see it in a second here. Look at that. Beautiful work of engineering. These are attached to each of the 8 chandeliers. And here's the 2 plugs that have to fit through this little hole down here. There's a little piece of 3-inch PVC pipe. It goes out of focus, unfortunately, but there's 3-inch PVC pipe that you have to squish these wires through, and also drop these cable down, unscrew the cable as you drop the chandeliers down to the floor for maintenance, cleaning, and changing the bulbs. Now we're heading up. This is about a 45-degree angle, by the way, and we have to step up to these 1x boards, you can see how it's heading off to the east right now. And then you have to climb over these girders to get to the other side. Part of the walkway is broken. You just have to sort of step over that. You can see a little bit of knob and tube wiring. The pipe on the right that you got a glimpse of used to be for the pipe organ pipes for the echo organ that used to be up here. We might catch that view later. That's the view back down. That little hole is how you get into this side. I've climbed up here. Now we're going to walk along these boards. They're kind of springy and bounce as you go along. So imagine doing that. This huge pipe on the left used to be an air vent that was installed some 25 years ago, but is no longer used. Notice those beautiful windows down there. The attics, both attics, are filled with these stained glass windows that nobody ever sees because there's no light behind them. Kind of a shame, but that's just the way it is. And notice the tiny little walkways that we have to navigate to get from one spot to the other. It's beautiful up there, really. You can still see some of the knob and tube wiring. It's left in place, but of course it's not being used anymore. The construction is very good. Now we see this new ladder right here that's bolted into place, and we're going to head up that ladder, and now we're up about 7 or 8 steps. This is the stained glass dome that is above the meeting house. You can see these little walkways, right? There's an aluminum walkway. I've lifted it up because the it will leave shadows if it's not folded up. There are 4 bright lights up here. You'll see those in the corners. They're metal halide lights that help to give a little bit of light. And then you can see the sunlight coming from the floor above. We'll head upstairs next and see that. But this stained glass window is original, and it was redone in the large 2005-2006 renovation. In 1926, they installed a bunch of pipe organ pipes up here. I don't know where, but it's called an echo organ, and it had a quiet sound of an organ floating down from the ceiling, supposed to sound angelic and wonderful. Now, this is the same area. It's a smaller one, but I'm walking along these little skinny painting sort of walkways. Here's one of the lights that you just saw on your left there. And then here's another walkway. It really is fascinating and a little bit scary to be up here. Now we've climbed up yet another floor, and this is the floor above the dome stained glass window. Notice these windows here, they're beautiful, and you will see the tower outside, the roof. This is the roof over that exact room. Actually, it's currently leaking, but that's just like any old building. There's always things to take care of. But the views are beautiful from up here, and we will take care of that leak pretty quickly. This is looking kind of northeast, and we get a beautiful view of the tower. Speaking of the tower, now is the time we're heading up to the tower. So we're going to walk up to the upper room attic and across that upper room attic to get to the upper levels of the tower. Some of the levels can be reached from the regular finished floors, and then the rest of the levels, you have to take the little hike through the attic to get to them. Once again, on the left is the light shaft for the stained glass window, and on the right is the light shaft that goes all the way from the roof down to the fellowship hall. Unfortunately, that was removed in 1951. Both skylights were removed in 1951. And at that time, the building was about 40 years old. So I'm guessing they were starting to leak, and they felt that it just wasn't enough light to make it worthwhile. So the door, the beautiful door that covered the stage, was removed. A ceiling was placed in that stage, and everything was disconnected. And then on the roof, they covered over both skylights. This is the arched entryway into the bell tower. We have just walked onto what I call the attic level of the tower. The stained glass windows are beautiful. We've gone up one level to the clock level. You can see an outline here, barely, of where the clock was. The hole in the floor was for the pendulum. EJ in 1962 painted part of the floor, and I'd like to figure out who that is. Now we are standing on the clock level, and we are looking down to the attic level This is what we came up a little bit ago onto this little tiny landing. And then we are going to head up to another landing, round the corner and up even steeper, mostly those steps, but it seems more like a ladder. We're heading all the way up to the next level, which is the bell level. And we'll be up there in just a second. Now we are at the bell level. It's considered outside. You can see all of the vents, these beautiful arched openings with the louvered covers. That's the ceiling above that goes to the clock face level. The clock level is actually below, but the faces of the clock are above the bell. The bell is able to be rung in three ways. That right there is the electric ringer, and that's what has been used for many years now. On the left, see the big hammer. That is what the clock used. This bell was made in 1875 by the Andrew Menely Foundry of West Troy, New York. Not long after, the company moved across to Troy, New York, and that at one time there were actually four foundries making bells. But this bell was made at the original foundry, and the bell was made some 35 years before this building was built. Actually, both the bell and the clock were removed from the previous church building and brought over here and installed. The previous building was where the current art museum, the current library and parking deck were. It was somewhere either where the parking deck is or the library is, somewhere on the west side of the street. Now we've come up the rickety ladder to the clock face. There are four clock faces that are identical and I believe 7 feet in diameter. Notice here, this is a gearbox and that keeps the clocks working the same. Now, that little box above it is about the size of a loaf of bread, and that is actually a mechanical clock. It's actually kind of old, and it turns these rods, which go out to each clock face that you can see here, and the gear separates the one turning rod into the two turning hands or arms of each clock. This is what keeps each clock face identical or to the other, at least the time rather, to identical to the other. It's sitting on a metal stand, and previously there would have been a rod that goes or that went all the way down past the bell to the clock at the clock level below. That is why the bell is situated off center in the room, not only for that reason, so that the rod could go through the center, but also the sides are actually a little bit stronger than the center of the room. Again, here are the gears for each clock face. Now we are going to head up another fairly rickety ladder, another 20 some feet or so, to get up to the final level of the tower, and that is the roof. The roof was replaced a few years ago. It had been leaking for a while, and so they replaced wood and roof and everything else. Now we're on the top of the world, at least the top of our world, I suppose. The tower is over 100 feet tall. Now we're looking north, and we're going to look clockwise. We're This is east, and then here comes the university into view, the Methodist Church. Downtown, we're looking south, southwest now, and we're looking more west. Down below, that's Market Street, West Market, right below, as you can see. And now we're looking more towards the north. That's North Union Street, heading out to Perkins, and then Route 8 from there. Here's the brand new roof. Thankfully, it is in good condition. I would not want to be the one who had to replace this. We're going to take a look down. I'm going to zoom all the way down. Pastor Nanette is waving. I did not have a tripod. I apologize. So I'm trying to hold the camera still, but it's still a little bit wobbly, but it's the best I could do with my little camera. Such a beautiful view. Now we're heading back all the way down. You can see right there is the clock level, and under it is the attic level. That chute straight ahead of you on the left was for the weights of the clock. We're heading through the arch, and now we've gone down one level below. We are now below the attic level. This is storage room right now for coats for kids, but it used to be the Sunday school teacher's room where they could prepare their lessons, take a little break, and the windows are absolutely beautiful. Those radiators are original, the Rococo style single pipe steam radiators. And we're going to head down one more level to the next level of the tower. These steps are all original. I imagine they weren't carpeted at the beginning, but they are now. Another beautiful stained glass window and radiator. This room is a storage room. Originally, when the building was built, it was a library. I'll bet it was a beautiful way to use this room. The room is about 14 by 14 feet, as of course would be the room above it. Right now it is used for storage. It's often difficult to find enough storage no matter how big the building is, it seems. Beautiful woodwork there. That the double doors goes into the meeting house. We're heading down to the final or the lowest finished floor of the tower. This is the north foyer or narthex. We're going to review. We have the basement, the foyer, the two different floors, the library and the storage room. That is the attic room, the clock room, and then I didn't have time to finish the other two, but after that was the bell level, the clock level, and the roof. 9 levels for the tower. Now we're heading through this little Alice in Wonderland door into the church basement. This used to have a beautiful stairway going down to it, which I've always found strange because this stairway goes down and this door was not here. It was all an open stairway. And you can see these stairs here. The coat room was added approximately 2006. But now we have this beautiful staircase and it just goes down to a dirt floor crawl space. The floor to ceiling height is give or take about 5 feet. So most of us have to duck. And then you throw in some of the steam pipes and other things that are in the way, and you really have to watch your head. Now we're under the main narthex or foyer. Union Street is to our right. And the large brick wall is a foundation wall helping to hold the building up. Steam pipes are on the right. And look what we have coming up here on the left. Straight ahead, I call that the pizza oven door. You'll see why in a second. Look what we have on the left. This is a well pump made in Ashland, Ohio. And I'm guessing it was used for the horses. The well goes 20 some feet deep. It's brick lined and still there. Now here's the pizza oven door. Notice how this looks like a pizza oven. This firewall is well over 2 feet thick at this level because it's holding up the 100-foot tower. Now we're taking a look under the fellowship hall. This used to be all lit by gas lights, believe it or not. When the building was built, people were kind of afraid of electric lights, and the vast majority of people still had gas lighting in their homes. So they were quite afraid of it. See, right there in front of you is the little pipe. We kind of went by it quickly. There's a pipe on the right coming down the brick wall, and those were two gas lights. The piping is still intact. They've been disconnected, however. Here's some old pews. When the 1958 building was added, a couple staircases were added, and they had to remove some of the pews. Now, straight ahead is the firewall that's looking north. Beyond that is the fellowship hall and then the upper room above. Notice how the ceiling of this little crawl space gets lower. That's because we are under the meeting house and it's tapering down. We're going to pan back here and see how it gets really tight in there. They've done a lot of renovations over the years. You can see all the new foundation work. They've added a lot of extra structure over the decades for different projects. It's still heated by steam, although it's two pipe, not one pipe. This is the area under the family room. Before that, it was called the bridal room. And originally, it was called the retiring room if someone was feeling lightheaded or overheated or something. Now we're going to head into the boiler room, my favorite room. You can see this clay tile. This was added in the 1920s as a firewall. The boiler room, all these wires are hanging down from the sound booth, unfortunately. The boiler room is kind of the heart and soul of the building. We're going to walk around here and down a few steps. So ahead of us is this steam boiler. This heats the entire 1910 building. It's brand new. And we are heading up. There's a few controls on the left that we're going to see. Most of those aren't used anymore, and I went ahead and disconnected most of those for safety reasons. This is the air conditioning system for the meeting house. It's 20 some years old, but it still does work. Again, here's our wonderful steam boiler, expertly installed and insulated. And that's a combination. Half the building is single pipe, half the building is two pipe steam. This is that brand new high efficiency hydronic boiler. That boiler heats the entire administrative educational wing and the parish house. These two pumps alternate and pump the hot water through both of those buildings to heat them, including the chapel. This is the boiler feed tank. This holds all of the extra water to feed the steam boiler. Off to the right, you see an air compressor. That's the 1958 Honeywell pneumatic system that controls the thermostatic valves. Most of them probably don't work anymore, but that's another story. Here's a very large electrical box panel, and we are going to take one more sweep of it. Hydronic boiler on the left, steam boiler in the center, pneumatic system, and then the electrical system on the right, which we're going to replace soon for safety reasons. And now we're leaving the boiler room and walking down this old hallway. You have to duck, by the way. Those are water pipes and steam pipes above you. We're going to swing around. A lot of dirt there. Again, it's entirely a dirt floor, and they've put different sections of new concrete to support new renovations. And new meaning 2006 was the last major renovation in the meeting house. So this room here is right beside that section you just saw. This is or was the blower room for the first organ. It was spec'd out by the Hope Jones Organ Company, but unfortunately that company was bought out by Wurlitzer and went defunct just as the church organ was supposed to be installed. So we never did get that organ. And we got a Kimball organ instead. Now we're heading through this second fire door. This is at the west side of the large firewall. Now we've stepped under the west vestibule, and this section is original to the 1910 building. Straight ahead was where the water came in. This was an electrical panel. You can still see the outline, which is fascinating. This little section here is where the water came in 110 years ago and still does today, in fact. And according to the plans, the gas lines came in at that location as well. They come into the boiler room at this time. This is the dirt crawl space under the fellowship hall. It's miserable to work in there, but amazingly, it is dry. I'm not even sure how that happened, but I'm very thankful for that. There's actually pipes here for gas lighting. So the lighting back in 1910, if you had to work under here, were gas jets. Again, gas was considered much safer than electric, and the vast majority of people had gas lighting in their homes rather than electric. We're going to head up the steps and then into the kitchen. The kitchen was originally two rooms. The bottom part of the diagram was the kitchen. The upper part was the serving room. Now it's all one very large room. These beautiful cabinets were in the kitchen and went from wall to wall and floor to ceiling. These were in the serving room, again, wall to wall and floor to ceiling. They were beautiful. And then Here's the plan of the serving window, and then there were three beautiful tables, a 5 foot long, 11 foot long, and 13 foot long. We'll spend a little bit talking about the organ. The current organ was originally installed in 1951 by Cassavant Ferrer from Quebec, and they came back in 2006 and not only refurbished it, but they added several ranks of pipes and they removed the chimes. There were chimes in here. And they also removed the echo organ that was above the dome. If you look up in the ceiling, you see a little round pipe that provided forced air to the dome pipes. I find pipe organs fascinating. They're as much a work of art to look at as they are to listen to. They're just fantastic works of art and technology. Here we have amplifiers because the lowest notes, the pipes would be 32 feet, approximately 32 feet long, and pretty much nobody has that kind of space. So they are sent through speakers. They're done digitally or electronically, and the sound actually comes from speakers for the very, very low notes. That's what these three amplifiers do for the organ. Now we're looking behind the front pipes so you can get a glimpse of the meeting house through and around those pipes. It's kind of a fascinating view. And notice some of the pipes are metal, some of the pipes are wood, and some are different types of combinations of all that. And there are different boxes. You'll see me stepping up and taking a picture inside this box. It'll come into view in a second here when the light balances. Here we go. So the different boxes provide different types of sounds and different ability to change the volume and such. You'll have to ask our organist, Julie Lehman, our music director, for more details than that. That's the best I can do with that. Again, it's fascinating. The longest pipes in this organ are in the 16-foot range. And the camera didn't pick up very well, but if you can look in the back, you'll see some of the really, really tall ones. There they are back there. Practically go to the ceiling. Some interesting pipes. The pipes are designed to mimic different instruments such as flutes and stringed instruments and brass instruments like trumpets and such. So the shapes have been designed to produce the sounds that they want. And there are walkways with very narrow ladders and narrow walkways so that each and every one of the 4,027 pipes can be reached and serviced by the professional technicians. But our job as lay people is to not touch any of them. Well, this is the original plan, the dream of the building. Started in 1907. Planning, the building was completed in 1910. This is the realization of these plans. This particular picture was from 1949. And then here's what we have today. It's very, very, very similar. And we're proud of not only the outside of the building and the inside of the building, but we're most proud of the people who would make up this church and all of the service organizations. Thank you for your time.